Hey guys, welcome to Vanishing Gates. I'm your host Jay, into the strange, the 40 and the unexplained, which I guess is all summed up in that second word that I said. If you guys don't know what that means, check up Charles Fort and you'll know. Tonight's cigar of the show is a Palma Real, and it's a decent Churchill cigar. Flat cut because I'm too lazy to do anything else. If you guys paid attention earlier, you'll notice that Paco will not be with us as much. He will be traveling around the country and being, all over the place. Hopefully on scene. So, that said, tonight's show is always brought to you by Dio Sandwiches in Eureka, California, Henderson Center, 829 Grotto Street. Check them out. Mention Vanishing Gates sent you. You'll get a discount on your sandwich. And guys, tonight we are joined by Matthew Jackson from Paraholics. Now, there's a little blurb I'm going to read because he took the time to send it to me, so I'm going to read it for him. Matt's on the line. Matthew Jackson's efforts in the paranormal have been described as everything from philosophically tenderizing to an ectoplasmic knuckle sandwich. Drawing on his unexplained experiences, ethereal whispers in his ear, seeing an apparition stare him down, and having a glass of water chucked at his head by an unseen cookout attendant or guest, Matthew set out to gather data and to explore the connections of haunted history to haunted folklore and delve into the theological and spiritual concepts in hopes of developing an understanding of what is labeled paranormal may in fact just be a normal cycle in our existence. All right, you know what, Matt, you're on the line. If you don't mind me calling you Matt. All right, so Matthew's with us, and you host the Paraholics channel on YouTube as well as investigating a lot.
Yeah, I do. I actually, just a funny backstory that you might get a kick out of. I was actually a paranormal investigator with another group, and the whole Paraholics thing actually came from an idea that we were all kicking around an idea one night about coming up with like a parody of ghost hunting and how funny it would be to have like this, imagining this alcoholic riding around on his moped with a car going into haunted locations. And I came up with just a funny term, like paraholics, to make kind of fun of that. When I first started my Twitter handle, it was just like a parody account. And later, it got a little bit of a following, and I just took ownership of it and took it to a totally different direction. And so that's where the whole thing came from. So it started from just a joke and kind of grew into something else.
No, I love it, man. I love the image of someone on a moped doing paranormal investigations whilst inebriated.
Yeah, not a good idea, kids.
Don't drink and drive. So you mentioned having a glass chucked at you whilst at a cookout by a ghost. Can you explain that?
Yeah, actually, it was not my first paranormal experience, but it was by far the most profound. It was the the shit your pants moment. We like shit your pants. This friend of mine had bought a house, and just give you a little backstory on him. He was an atheist, and so he had no belief in any type of spirituality or spiritual concepts whatsoever. And he bought this house, and he invited me over after a place to just to check it out. And the first thing I noticed when I got to his house is in his landscaping, he had like every form of religious idolatry known to man in the landscaping. And this is from the previous owners. This is nothing that he did. He just bought the place and had to have time to making changes. But there were Marys and Buddhas and crucifixes and apostles and you name it. It was all out there. And so, immediately I started giving him a hard time about, his landscaping. And when he first takes me into the house, he's kind of walking me around. The first thing I noticed was there was this pink film or stain around all the windowsills. And, and after a couple rooms, I noticed this was pretty consistent. And I asked him, what the deal was. And he said, oh, yeah, there was a murder on this property years ago. And the people who owned this house thought it was haunted. So they had the landscaping, and they kept having the house blessed and sealed to try to ward spirits. And he just thought it was hilarious. And at that time, I just kind of let it roll off my back, and I thought it was kind of funny that this landed in his lap. And so anyway, like 6 months after he moved in, he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, my house is haunted." And so, I mean, that really got my attention coming from him, especially. And so he'd been living there for quite some time, and he invited me over one evening, and it was the summer of 2003. And the reason I remember it is because Mars was really vivid in the sky. And he had a great big telescope, and he lived on this, his house was on this hilltop. So he invited me over just to look at Mars through the telescope. So I was there, and there was another girl there, and just the three of us, and we're hanging out on the back deck, taking turns looking at this telescope. And I had a big glass of water, and I mean, it was completely full, and water, not vodka. I always have to clarify that, people always ask. And so I took the glass of water and I set it down on the floorboard or the deck board directly behind me, and because it was getting ready to, for my turn to look through the telescope. And anyway, so I'm standing there, and it was one of the nights that you were just real quiet, man. It was kind of breathtaking, the sky, and it was just kind of a magical moment. And all of a sudden, something whispered in my, and I thought it was the girl. She was standing like right next to me. I thought she leaned over and said, and so I leaned towards her and I asked her, like, excuse me, what did you say? One of those types of moments. But she had the same experience. She thought I whispered in her ear. So we like turned to each other at the same time with, excuse me, pardon me. At that moment, something, it's like it punt kicked that glass. I mean, the sound of like a sturdy glass getting hard. It didn't break, but it straight up in the air. And water went, I mean, the glass went above her head. Water went all over both of us. So our moment of, pardon me, what did you say, instantly turned into, what the hell was that? And my buddy who lived there at the house, he was sitting at his telescope, looking at Mars. He turned away. Rethinking the possibilities of life and death and the unknown and what any of that could possibly mean, you know. So that was my water, my glass of water being chucked at my head at a pitch in.
Now that I figured out how to get your image up here, because now I can see you on the screen. For
Okay.
some reason, my audio is not working. Great, I see in chat. One moment. Sorry, dude. Like always flying by the seat of my pants here. Let's see if I can get this to go again.
I can guarantee you fine.
Yeah, I got like two different microphones working at one time, so it's always a
Okay.
thing. And okay, sound good. Sound is back. We hear sound now.
So,
All right.
okay.
So, what brought you into, or what was the moment you knew the paranormal was a thing that would be part of your life? Was there like a defining moment in your childhood or something? Was there a relative who was very involved, or?
Well, to back things up a little bit, before I had the glass of water thrown at my head, I was working in an old building in a small town here in Indiana. It's an old historic building, and I was working there one night, and I saw a hand mirror get thrown across the room. There was nobody. There was nobody, on that side of the room, that side of the building, and myself and like three other people witnessed this hand mirror get tossed, and I mean it was like a frisbee across the room, probably about 8 feet, and hit the ground. And that's when people started talking about that building being haunted, right?
Oh wow.
And it was after, that was, I forget what year that was, but after the incident with the glass of water being chucked, it really got me interested in thinking about, what would cause a, and like my buddy, there was a murder on that property at one point, and then so that got me interested in why possibly that original building where I saw it get thrown, what would make that property haunted. So I went to the county offices and I started doing research on the old plat maps of that area, and I went back far enough to where at one point that was not even part of the city limits, and it was an old country church and cemetery that was on that property at one point. And at one point, I even found records as late as the 1980s. They had found grave remains in that city block. So it just became like fascinating. You start looking at the connection between what we experience, how connected to the past, whether it a tragic past or just something associated with death or whatever that would make something like that manifest. And when something like that manifests, is it there because it chooses to be? Is it a free will thing? Is it stuck? I mean, there's just so many possibilities. And then we try to frame it in the reference of different, theologies and just different concepts. And then all the craziness that you will gather from the paranormal community, the ideas that people will bring to the table.
Yeah.
It becomes an obsession a little bit, an addiction. And here I am, however many years later, and I definitely have more questions than answers. So it's been a really incredible journey.
That's awesome, man. So you recently, was it last weekend you did an investigation? Because we had tried to plan to have an interview, and you were in Jamaica, and then you had an investigation. So talk about the investigation you had, if you don't mind, unless you're still sorting through stuff.
Well, I can't really tell you everything I investigated in Jamaica, but I can tell you about last week.
Never tell us what you did in Jamaica, ever.
Yeah, the place I went to last weekend is called Fox Hollow Farm, and it's there's a real affluent area north of Indianapolis called Carmel. And back in the 90s, like 91 to 96, there was this guy who lived up there. His name was Herb Bauermeister, and he was a serial killer. And what makes this place really interesting is, most like homes of serial killers, especially where there's been like mass graves. Most of those places get knocked down. This house is still standing. There's a family that lives in the home, and they estimate that they know for sure there were 11 victims, but they found enough random bones on the property that they think it was upwards of like 17 to possibly 20 victims on this property.
Oh,
And it's all, I mean, this is a big estate home, like I said, an affluent area. He had, I think, like 16 acres around him, so he had a little bit of a buffer from society. And he would, basically, he would send his family away, and he would go to the gay bars in Indianapolis, and he would pick up men and bring them back to his house and kill them and leave their bodies in the woods, essentially. And to this day, they still find bones, and they will take the bones down to the University of Indianapolis, where there's a great forensics department, and that's the same department that's been working the case from the get-go, trying to identify who these guys are. But Herb was very specific. He would only pick up men who were not from Indianapolis, so they called him the I-70 killer. And basically, when everything started collapsing around him, he wound up taking his life. But the haunt claims at the home are everything from apparitions of young men in the house and around the woods, and also of Herb himself. So I got invited by another group, and I haven't had a chance to review everything, but we definitely had some experiences. Um, yeah, I know I got some great EVPs, had some really weird stuff come through on a ghost box at one point. So I'm really interested in what happens when we start pulling through. But I can tell you about one EVP that I got. They say that the ghost of Herb is seen sometimes out the master bathroom, and that window faces where he would keep like the majority of the victims' bodies. And so they've seen this guy. It's like his spirit. I don't know if he's, admiring his handiwork, or if like a regret thing, or why he might be standing in that particular window. But anyway, that's the story. So I was in the bathroom with two other investigators, and we were just doing an EVP session. And I just had a record, and I asked if anyone could hear me, if they to come forward and talk to me. And all of a sudden, we start hearing shuffling and footsteps in the master bedroom, right off the bathroom, like it was coming towards us. And I'm like, who's in here with me? And we play back the recorder, and there's a voice on there, clear as day, that says, killer.
I bet that made the hair stand up on the back of your neck.
No. And yeah, that was an attention getter. So I can't wait to go through everything that we recorded and just see what that. But it was a real, it was amazing just to be in that location, knowing the dark history. I mean, even though the place had no reports of paranormal activity, that place is haunted just with the history and the.
It's funny because in chat on the Facebook page, M mentioned Fox Hollow or whatever it is. She knows what you're talking about. So there's definitely a knowledge of things going on there. So it's so cool that you got to be there and experience that.
Yeah, it's been on my Indiana bucket list, paranormal bucket list for several years now, and most opportunities in the past have always involved like big groups, like public investigation type things, like 25 plus people, and I mean, that's not my cup of tea at all. So when I got the opportunity to go in with four other people, I mean, I jumped on it. So
That's awesome, dude. Like I couldn't imagine doing big group investigations. It would just drive me crazy. I want to do my own thing. I want to
yeah,
feel the surroundings. I want to check the wiring. I want to do all the things that can disprove. But also at the same time, if I were to experience something, that'd be awesome. So,
yeah,
what's your favorite piece of equipment? I know you got some ghost boxes.
yeah, I do.
So what's
There's all kinds of families within the paranormal community. Families and families like to feud, and some things are more controversial, and people want to discredit and accept different things and whatever. But I really got involved with ITC work several years ago, and that's kind of become my little niche a little bit as far as like things that I really get bamboozled and befuddled with. And so the ITC stuff just kicks my butt, man. So I got into. I mean, to me, the greatest thing that you can get. I mean, outside of like something visual, is just a regular EVP. To me, EVPs are the cat's meow. But the ghost boxes and the ghost box builders, I really got interested in that whole scene too. And so I started chatting up all the different ghost box builders that are out there, and I've kind of amassed pretty cool collection of different like boutique boxes,
nice?
instead of like the mass produced ones. And they, I always tell people they all kind of have their own personalities. And what I mean by that is, they're different sounds and features. And, some people like some other, better than others, or some people don't like the guy who builds that one, so they don't like that box, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I try to try them all, man. I want to throw everything out there just to see what kind of different results I get. So I do have several ghost boxes, lots of different digital recorders too. Just try those. So yeah, that's what I like to do. That's what I focus on.
Nice, man. Like I have this SP7 over here, and I've never had any luck with it at all, ever.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had,
it's really weird, dude. I mean, it almost like you almost have to. This sounds really strange, but you almost have to like, get a connection with ITC device. They call it like imprinting. You almost have to have a certain connection with it. And most of the time, I find when I get a new box, man, I got to take it out and really work with it 5 or 6 times before it connects to spirit. I mean, it's strange, but I mean, rarely I ever get a ghost box out and it instantly starts chatting with me, and I feel like it's something I can't explain away. So it's weird, man. It continuously like amazes me.
that leads me to my next question. Actually, that leads me to a question. What do you feel about the Ouija boards? Because to me, talking boards and these devices are pretty much the same thing. One has circuits and one is cardboard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You mentioned imprinting. So do you feel like there's a correlation or a big difference there? Do you feel like there's a separation? Would you not use a Ouija board versus a spirit box, or do you think it even matters overall?
There's so many prejudices against the Ouija board. People just think they're gateways to, you put you on the highway to hell, even though they sell it at Toys R Us, and It's like the big evil things that Hollywood has really done a number on. But to me, quite honestly, there's not a whole lot of difference between EVP work and ghost box work and those types of forms of communication. Automatic writing, Ouija boards, pendulums. I mean, you're trying to establish communication with something you can't see.
Yeah.
And I would say if there's any type of difference, I mean, because you can't control what comes through. I mean, I get cussed out through my ghost boxes. People cussed out on Ouija. And I think once you turn that light on, regardless if you're in a haunted location or not, I think you could be in a cornfield and you eventually draw them in. So to me, not a huge difference, except when you use pendulum typically or Ouija, whatever, your body is more of a conduit. And whether or not that makes a difference as far as like developing an attachment or whatever, that's a possibility. I mean, that's kind of above my pay grade, but it kind of makes so. Theoretically, I can see there's that difference, but as far as like the act of establishing communication, I think it's all the same.
I think I agree. I agree, man. I mean, like we're basically big bags full of water. We have electricity, and we're scanning water. We're basically giant antennas. So it's where you put your energy. I think that's a big part of that, and I think that's where people get hung up on is the old style witchcraft and summoning versus trying to communicate with electricity. I mean, you're electrical. You're a machine. As a human.
Yeah.
There was a question in chat though, and I know what she means, but what do you think about that thing they use on Ghost Adventures that shows up a stick man if a ghost shows up, supposedly? So an SLR camera. What do you think about? Now I have one because I own Xboxes. So what do you think about the SLR camera?
Well, I bought. I'm a little bit of an equipment slut, and when Bill
Thumbs up, buddy.
when Bill Chappell came out with his X Cam, I bought one, and I try to be fair whenever I try anybody's new tech, new gear, and I really, if you look back some of my early videos, I really gave the X Cam a pretty fair shake, and the thing that always bothers me, and there have been a few videos people have shown me that are a little bit different, but typically the stick figures. I mean, these cameras are made. They want to map out a human figure. They want that. That's their prime directive is to map out the human figure.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it seems like, and I learned this with my X Cam. I could take it and I could put it against almost any flat surface, and if I kept messing with it, eventually I would make a stick figure. And to me, it's like the possibilities of false positives on those things are so strong.
Yeah.
Extremely, extremely careful on anything that you would record and try to normal. Because I knew I was in trouble when I first opened up my, and I opened it up and I'm excited and I'm at my work and I actually own like a barber shop and I have like 4 stations against one wall and these stations all shut out. So I have these cabinets that come out and I turn my X cam and I face it down my shop and against every single one of my stations was a stick figure.
Yeah.
And I thought, my God, this is the most haunted salon and it undermined a lot of my credibility with that piece of equipment almost right out the gate.
Yeah.
But I have seen some things where the stick figures don't seem to be as much like up against a flat surface. So I guess basically what I'm saying is I'm not saying that it's not possible to get something paranormal, but I think the likelihood of it being a false positive is just really, really high.
Super high. And I'm a big Microsoft guy, Xbox guy, and a buddy of mine works for Microsoft. He does some, he takes care of some things in games. Actually, my tech guy, Nick, who pops on once in a while. And the way the programming is on those cameras, it's like 3 different kinds of cameras plus a sound reactor. And it actually, if you put it against a chair, an empty chair, it will implant a stick figure. It'll tell what the chair is and actually put something there. So I have a
Yeah.
real hard time with that, as cool as that is, and I really want to see something because he's the first one to point out, hey man, check out this thing. And but if you look at it, you have to download the right software, which makes the thing do what it does. I mean, it's pretty accurate at using the body. Like if you ever played Just Dance on the Kinect, it's pretty accurate. And so, it does its thing. But if there's a non-physical being there, it's just looking for the surroundings. I think a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And that's not to be super skeptical. Like I always like the infrared idea and the FLIRs and whatnot. I think that stuff is way more likely to find something really cool.
I agree. Yeah, and there are some moments in my videos that I have the XCam footage on there, and it kind of made me cringe now when I go back and look at that stuff because I'm more certain now than I ever was that I don't think it was something paranormal.
Yeah.
Uh, so, and that's why I get really frustrated. It's like if a freaking dumb barber in the middle of a cornfield can figure this out, I know those guys on TV. They know what they're doing, and so that's that goes back to the whole frustration that that people get with the TV shows. But I mean, it is what it is. But I guarantee that they get a lot of money selling them.
Oh man, I mean, like I literally got mine the old way. Like I had an Xbox I didn't use anymore, had the
Yeah.
Kinect, and I bought the wire. That's all I had to buy. Everything else is there. The software is free. You get a tablet to hook up to it, and it's easy to do. So I mean, I, it's like the Spirit Box, the SB7. I have a really hard time with that with the frequency modulation because going in reverse, you're way more likely to find something. If you find something, it's going to be in reverse, not pattern forward. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because like pattern forward, you're going to hear things. You're going to want to hear things. And I wanted to hear things I've recorded. Made no sense when I listened back and actually, you know, had an objective mind to it. It's now I've seen things, absolutely seen things, but
Yeah.
I've never picked anything up on technology that, you know, and I think that.
Well, yeah, I've kind of gotten away from being so tech heavy when I go in and I do my investigations. I have cameras out the wazoo. I have
Yeah.
so much stuff, but I had an experience a few years ago with Waverly Hills, the Waverly Hills
Ooh,
Sanitarium.
yeah, I know what that is.
That's only like 60 minutes from my house. I can get to Waverly pretty quick, so I usually go to Waverly like once a year.
Oh
Excuse
wow.
me. So anyway, I was there with my wife, who's a huge skeptic, and that might be the pair pretty well wasted time. Right? So I constantly trying to get her just to go with me, and I finally convinced her to go with me on an overnight at Waverly in private investigation. So there's only like 10 of us people, and we went up on the third floor, and we just went up there and we sat down a long time, and I wasn't. I let go of the whole idea of trying to record any type of data for evidence, anything like that. I just wanted to go up and sit in the environment. And we sat up there for a while, and we got up and we started to walk down the hallway. And Waverly, except for the first floor, the rest of the building opens up to like these open air balconies because that's how they thought they needed to treat tuberculosis. So it can be 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's usually enough natural light coming from the sky that you really don't even need a flashlight to walk around Waverly Hills in the middle of the night. So we're walking down this long hallway, and you can see around you. You know what I mean? And we're being perfectly quiet, walking along, and all of a sudden I see what I perceive to be like a 3 foot tall, bulbous head, arms, bipedal, but real kind of misty, like a kid or an alien gray or whatever, run across me in the hallway.
Really?
And instantly I know it's not a raccoon, it's not a possum. It looked like a little kid, but made of mist, and both enough detail that I could see the arms and legs. And it was completely silent, which is like the thing that creeps me out the most about it. And it just ran right in front of me. And of course, here I am with my wife, who doesn't believe in any of this stuff, and I didn't want to sound insane, so I didn't say I didn't want to sound insane, immediately. But I waited a couple seconds and I said, "Hey Angie, did you see anything?" And she said, "Oh, you mean the gray thing?" And she didn't want to say anything either because she saw it too.
That's awesome.
And yeah, one of the most amazing visual moments I've had to date, in all the years I've been doing this, and it's just mind blowing, right? And I guess my point is, if I had been walking around like one of the Borg from Star Trek Next Generation with my cameras, my gear, and all that stuff, I guarantee you I would not have had that moment. So it's kind of a reminder for me that when I think we miss so much just trying to record all this stuff
Yeah.
to prove people who aren't going to believe it anyway. And I think we miss a lot by just not going and kind of immersing ourselves in an environment and kind of soaking it up and see what comes to us. So that's the moral of the story.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Like I said, I've seen a ton of things in person that are just make me sound crazy talking about. I've talked about a couple of them on the show. Experiences. I haven't gotten to the really crazy stuff ever because I probably won't on the show because I still have to like maintain some credulity, you know.
Right.
We had Jim Harold, the Paranormal Podcast guy, was a guest on the show, and he talked about an experience he had, and that was based over the radio after his brother had passed away, and you don't know how sincere it is until you hear him tell it, and then you know he's not making stuff up. You know it's something so profound that it's a real thing. You don't need technology to record those incidences. That said, I mean, I live like an hour away from where Patterson Gimlin footage was filmed, and I still don't buy it. I don't. Like I've been there. I've been to Bluff Creek where it was filmed. I'm not saying Bigfoot doesn't exist, but I'm hard pressed to believe until I see it. You know.
Yeah.
And I'm not against it. Like I've had a UFO sighting, not a flying saucer, but unidentified flying object. You know, the actual UFO terminology. I think that I don't know. Maybe you feel the same way that, and I'm looking this way, and because I don't look ever at my camera, just so you know, in case you're watching. So I'm not ignoring you. Do you feel like those of us who are more in tune to the supernatural, the unexplained, the paranormal, are more open to other things going on around us? Like, do you think that aliens or extraterrestrials or ghosts or cryptid creatures? Do you think that there's a connection between open-mindedness or self-awareness and those who aren't even open to it? Do you think people shut themselves out altogether?
Well, I'm starting to think that a lot of this phenomena is somehow connected, and I really don't know how it all ties together. I mean, is this all like some interdimensional experience that fades in and fades out from our reality? But a friend of mine who is a paranormal investigator, real heavy on like the side, he was contacted a few years ago by like MUFON, the UFO guys, because it seems like what he was telling me that whenever there's been like UFO sightings, there's usually a correlation with cryptid sighting at the same time and same location.
Yeah.
And so it kind of became like their cryptid guy on the ground to go and investigate those claims while other people were looking at the UFO claims. So I think someone who's more open and in tune and aware, and I think you're more open to be and have those types of experience. I think people can get shut off, just like they talk about little kids. They're more prone to experience things because they're not closed-minded. They're not shut off. They're still open to the magic of what's around them. And when you get old and curmudgeon and fat, you know, might shut down, and we get so stress, anxiety, making money, the other things we have to pursue. I think it steals a little bit of what makes us unique on this planet, and just the ability to be able to wonder and hold out for something exciting, something new, and fantastic and different. So that's one thing that I always tell people, whether or not there is a such thing as ghost or Bigfoot, whatever. When I'm going around in the dark in some abandoned freaking hospital, by golly, that's like the closest thing you can come as an adult to feeling like a Goonie. And if you're a kid from the if you're a kid from the '80s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the camaraderie, the fun, and the creepiness, the history, all of that's real. So, and if something else happens that's unexplainable, I mean that's a bonus. But to me, it's kind of like, what? I'm having more fun than than most people I know, and I don't take myself so serious where I think I'm some pseudoscientist and I'm going to solve all this. I don't think that's my job. I think my place here is just to kind of experience and to kind of tell people about it. But I mean, I'm not really trying to change anybody's mind or fix it.
Yeah. What do you? Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't want to be a scientist. You're not worried about proving it to others. So what do you think drives you? And this is a weird question to ask, and it's super hard to answer for any of us who are very interested in this because it's
Yeah.
hard to pin down. So what do
Yeah.
you think it is? Like if you were to just take a breath for a moment and think, what drives you, Matthew Jackson, to want to figure out what it is we don't understand and in this particular realm? Because you could be trying to do astrophysics, but
Yeah.
and who's to say this isn't really astrophysics? You know what I mean?
Right.
So what?
I think honestly, you could take a photo front door tomorrow morning of a Sasquatch taking a dump in your front yard, drinking a cup of coffee, read paper, and he looks at you and says, peace out, and gets in a UFO, flies away. You could catch all that on video, and you could take it to the media outlets and get it out there, and it's real, and you had that experience. But by golly, 99.9% of people out there are going to say BS. And so there's a little bit of a fruitless effort, I think, in trying to, to convince people that all is true. So instead of trying to beat myself up and frustrated, I've just found more joy in the experience of immersing myself in the history and the environment and enjoying that part of it. So I think that's more of what drives me. And there's the side of me too that, I mean, everybody wants to know what happens to you after you die, and is paranormal phenomena, ghosts and haunted locations, does that tie into the afterlife, or is it something completely different? Um,
Mhm.
that I don't know, and that makes me curious. And I'm still always trying to test anything I'm in communication with. It's like, is this really the soul of someone who's passed away? Is this truly a murder victim I'm talking to, or is this something else just monkeying with me? So I'm a real curious person. So that drives me as well. But at the same time, I think it's more of my personal journey than a journey I feel like I need to take the whole world on and prove it to anyone. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That
Yeah.
that's about what I think a lot of us feel like. I don't know that too many of us really want to prove it to other people. To be honest, I think I, I feel like there's almost a diversion. I know we want to say when we investigate that we want the answers, but I think there's an actual diversion in our personalities to have the full set of answers because I think that would kind of rob us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how dirty would it feel if Bigfoot just showed up?
Yeah.
Just started hanging out. Sasquatch came down from the hills. Oh yeah, we're here. What's up? Or
Yeah.
the whole government thing about aliens, like the document drops about. Oh yeah, we've been investigating UFOs. Well, of course you have. You're the military. You should. That's your job.
Right.
But how bad would it feel if aliens actually showed up and they're like, well, hey, we're just here. I don't know what you guys are talking about. you know, or you got to see like I have the biggest amount of respect for those I think who've had near death experiences and they've
Yeah.
gone to that place and they always come back a totally different person. Every one
Right.
of them, and they're happier. They're more energetic, but they
Yeah.
they don't even have the answers. And I think it's, I mean, maybe it's better that way.
You know, I kind of that maybe we're tapped into some sort of matrix thing to where, our brains are more like receivers, and, our physical receiver can get damaged. But at the same time, when that receiver shuts down, that doesn't mean that, wherever this information was coming from necessarily goes away. And you hear about stories of people getting brain damage somehow, and they come out of it and they can speak another language that they never knew before.
Yeah.
No, it's like, so is all this stuff like already in there, or did they just open up a different part of their mind? A program is built in all of us inherently, or is it beamed in? Or I mean, you go crazy with this stuff trying to figure it out. I mean, but it's fascinating, and people, I mean, you can't figure it out.
No, I agree. I don't necessarily think we should figure it out overall. I mean, we talk about it, so we want some answers. I don't know if we want all the answers. I think paraholics is a great way to say it. I think we're junkies for the unknown. Whether we want
Yeah.
the full answer or not, I don't know that we do.
Well, I've always been really frustrated with people who are like absolutists, and they know, like, they think they know everything. They have answers for everything, and everything is so black and white. And to me, it's like, from the outside looking in, I'm like, your life has to be the most boring and stale existence on this planet. I mean, how do you have any fun because you know everything, And I could never be like that, man. I mean, I just that I'd blow my brains out. I mean, I can't imagine that type of life. And I guess that eliminates all fear if you know everything, uh, because you don't have to be afraid of the boogeyman, I guess. But I mean, what's the fun in that, man? I still jump in my bed.
Jump over, cover your feet up. Sometimes tuck the
Oh,
sheets over your head.
oh, put a sheet over your head. You're golden for
The
demons, man.
magic blanket of protection. I just keep my guns loaded. I'm old fashioned.
Right.
It's funny because I think about the intellectual side of things, and I don't consider myself an intellectual because I'm not very smart, but I love to read. But I listen to people who, like you said, they know everything, they have all the answers. Those are the high intellectual people. And I want to see one of those guys live in the woods with just a knife. Like, for 2 days. For 2 days. Just let me see how that works out for you. There's a primal part, I think, for some of us. I think maybe the more primal folk, I don't know about yourself. I'm pretty primal. I try to make myself more refined, but I'm clearly not. That might be the tap in. Like, you go into nature, you can feel the woods around you. You can. I'm not being all hippie with it. Like, I don't go into nature to be one with nature. I go to nature to make nature my bitch. But, I still have to appreciate that a bear can eat me regardless of whether I want it to or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think that maybe the supernatural, and this is just me, maybe the supernatural is actually a definite part of us, and maybe some of us can tap into it, and some of us just shut that off. If that makes any sense. It doesn't explain aliens necessarily, but, whatever. So, if you had your druthers, what's a place that you have not investigated yet that you would love to investigate?
Oh man, there's so many places I would think would be interesting. Um, I hate to bring up one of the TV shows, but if there's one thing that I've learned from those ghost hunting shows is I get location envy, and I just like to see some of the places that they get to go to. And I've always been kind of obsessed with that island in Italy off of what was it, Bavaria Island or something? Is it like
It's off
Florence?
Sardinia, I think. Not Sardinia, but
Yeah,
off Sardinia, where the Plague Island was.
yeah, the Plague Island. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
where
yeah. Zach Bagans was on lockdown there. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, that would be insane.
that would be great to get to go to something like that. I'm hoping actually this summer that I'm going to go to England. A friend of mine lives over there who's an investigator, that we do the Dark Country project together, and I'm at some castles and to check out some spots over there. I think that'd be fascinating.
That's awesome. Well, talk about Dark Country a little bit for those who are watching that don't know.
Yeah, okay. Dark Country is a project I started with a guy named Anthony England, who lives in England, which is completely redundant. I mean, I call Matthew America, but whatever. Um, he's a good friend of mine, and he came over here well, it was a year ago, this past February, and we shot for a week solid here in the Midwest, going to different locations. We had an opportunity with an agent in Hollywood that wanted us to come up with a sizzle reel for this dark country concept we had, which is basically to go to small towns, small areas, because every place has a ghost story, and try to get access to some of these local legends and just see if we could actually record anything to any of that folklore, haunted folklore. And so we've it's got a little bit of buzz, but regardless, Anthony and I, we just really enjoy working together. And regardless if anything comes of it, we like to get together like once a year because he's got a free place to stay in the U.S. I got a free place to stay in England, and just to be able to get together and investigate is just really cool. So that's basically it. So I mean, we're on Twitter, Facebook, all that. So it's fun. We got some cool stuff on YouTube. You can see some of our work that we did together.
And that's under your Paraholics channel?
What's that?
Is that under your Paraholics channel on YouTube?
No, it's under Dark Country.
Dark Country? Another one I gotta follow now. Dang it. Give me too much to do, Matt. All right, so what's a place you would not investigate? Like, is there a place where you feel like deep down in your body and your soul, that's not a place you want to go? Is there anything like that for you?
Concentration camp.
Yeah.
Do it, man. Could not do it. I'm terrified that I actually might record something. I mean, I just couldn't do it.
See, it's different for me. Like, I couldn't do it just out of respect for the dead, and I don't think anyone is still there for me. That's a weird personal hang up for me. But yeah, I feel you on that one. That would be much. That would be.
Yeah.
I would like to go and see the in memoria, but I can't be one of those guys to me that would be like you're exploiting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I mean. I would like to think that there's nobody there, and I would hate to think that if I did, actually record something and get something, I would feel guilty, but I think it'd be terrifying. I mean, I can't.
Oh God, the pain.
I mean, I'd probably walk away and never investigate again if I did something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a good call. Not to laugh about it, but I think it's a good